There is a moment in every human life, a moment so universal, so quietly mysterious, that we rarely stop to question it. A moment when the mind begins to let go of the world and enters a realm where consciousness dissolves, memories reorganize, and the body repairs itself in ways science is only beginning to understand. Tonight, as you listen, you are standing at the edge of that moment. Sleep is not simply rest. It is an ancient biological ritual older than language, older than dreams that has shaped every creature that has ever lived on this planet. Your brain, right now, is preparing to perform one of the most complex operations in nature, shutting itself down while keeping you alive, repairing tissues, recalibrating emotions, and rewriting memories with the precision of a silent engineer. And yet, we still do not fully understand why we sleep, why the brain chooses darkness, why consciousness must dissolve for the mind to heal, why every night, without fail, we surrender to a force we cannot resist. As you drift deeper into this exploration, you will discover the hidden architecture of sleep, the neural rhythms that rise and fall like tides, the chemical orchestras that quiet the waking mind, and the strange, luminous frontier where dreams are born. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts soften, because tonight we step into one of the greatest scientific mysteries of the human experience. Why we sleep. As the outer world begins to fade, the first change happens deep within the brain's prefrontal cortex, the center of logic, planning, and conscious thought. Throughout the day, this region works tirelessly, holding your attention, organizing your tasks, interpreting every sound, every decision, every fragment of experience. But when sleep approaches, its activity begins to dim, like city lights lowering at dusk. This gentle decline is not a failure of the mind, it is a necessary surrender. For the brain cannot step into the deeper architecture of rest until the conscious narrator loosens its grip. In these quieting moments, you may feel a soft widening inside you, a sense that the mind is becoming less rigid, less focused, more fluid, preparing the way for the descent into sleep. At the same time, another ancient system awakens the thalamus, the brain's central gateway for incoming sensations. All day long, it has allowed information to flow freely, sounds, light, movement, every interruption from the outside world. But as night arrives, it slowly begins to close its gates. The world does not disappear, it simply becomes distant, softened, muffled behind an invisible curtain. This transition, though subtle, is what separates wakefulness from the first drift into sleep. The thalamus quiets the noise, the conscious mind steps aside, and the inner landscape becomes still enough for the body's deeper rhythms to emerge. Then, beneath the surface, a remarkable chemical shift begins. Levels of adenosine built up through every hour of wakefulness reach their peak, urging the body toward rest. Melatonin, released from the pineal gland, spreads through your bloodstream like a gentle, darkening tide, signaling to every cell that the time for renewal has arrived. These molecules do not force sleep. Instead, they create the perfect internal environment for it to unfold naturally, as it has for millions of years. The body, the breath, the mind, each element begins to align, forming a quiet biological harmony that leads you into the first phase of sleep. And as your awareness drifts deeper into this biological choreography, you may notice something else, a soft detachment from the urgency of the day. Thoughts that once felt sharp begin to blur. Emotions that once felt heavy begin to lighten. This is the mind resetting its emotional networks, the amygdala stepping back, the limbic system calming, the brain preparing to reorganize the experiences you carried with you. It is not merely rest. It is a deliberate, evolution-shaped process designed to protect your inner world. Soon, the boundary between waking and sleeping will dissolve entirely. Your breath will slow, your muscles will loosen, and your mind will step beyond conscious control, entering a deeper, quieter territory where the true mysteries of sleep begin to unfold. As you drift further inward, the architecture of your brain begins to change in profound and measurable ways. The electrical activity that once moved in rapid, scattered patterns now slows, lengthens, and begins to synchronize. Neurons that spent the day firing in chaotic bursts fall into a gentle, unified rhythm, an elegant pattern known as slow wave activity. These slow waves are the signature of deep sleep, sweeping across the cortex like soft tides washing over a quiet shore. With each wave, the brain clears out metabolic waste, resets neural sensitivity, and prepares the mind for another day of learning and perception. It is in these moments that the brain performs some of its most essential maintenance work, quiet, hidden, and absolutely vital. Deeper still, something remarkable begins in the hippocampus, the brain's memory core. Throughout your waking hours, countless experiences are temporarily stored there, fragile and unorganized. But during slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus begins to replay these memories in short, rhythmic bursts, sending them into the neocortex for long-term storage. This process, known as memory consolidation, is one of the great secrets of the sleeping brain. Every night, as your consciousness drifts into darkness, the brain quietly rewires itself, strengthening connections that matter and discarding those that do not. Learning, creativity, emotional stability, they all depend on these silent nocturnal replays. At the same time, the body descends into deeper restorative work. Growth hormone surges, repairing tissues, healing microscopic damage, and supporting the immune system. Muscles relax completely, blood pressure drops, and the autonomic nervous system shifts into its most restorative state. From the outside, this phase looks like stillness. But inside, it is a symphony of healing, an entire internal ecosystem working in perfect coordination. Your organs, cells, and neural circuits are participating in a ritual older than humanity itself, guided by evolutionary forces that shaped sleep across millions of years. As slow waves continue to ripple through the brain, the sense of self begins to fade further. You are no longer anchored to the narrative of your day. Thoughts dissolve into soft impressions. Time becomes fluid. Identity becomes weightless. In this quiet, the brain is free to operate without the constant interruptions of consciousness, free to repair, recalibrate, and reorganize the complex machinery that defines your waking life. It is a return to a state of biological purity, one where the mind is no longer performing, striving, or reacting, but simply being. And as your awareness settles into this deep internal ocean, the night prepares to shift once again. The slow waves will recede, new rhythms will emerge. A different stage of sleep, stranger, brighter, more dream-laden, begins to rise at the horizon of your mind, waiting to unfold. As the slow, restorative waves begin to fade, the landscape of your mind shifts once more, moving gently toward a stranger and more luminous frontier. Neuronal rhythms start to rise, flickering with increasing complexity. The thalamus, which had closed its sensory gates to the outer world, now opens selective pathways, allowing not reality but imagination to flow in. This transition marks your entry into REM sleep, a phase where the sleeping brain becomes astonishingly active, almost mirroring wakefulness, yet with the body held in perfect stillness. Here, consciousness loosens completely, drifting into a world shaped not by logic, but by memory, emotion, and the mysterious architectures of the subconscious. In this vivid domain, the amygdala lights up with renewed intensity, coloring the dreamscape with emotional tones: fear, wonder, longing, nostalgia. Simultaneously, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for judgment and rational structure, remains quiet, allowing scenes to unfold without the boundaries imposed by waking logic. This imbalance explains the surreal fluidity of dreams, how places shift, how people merge, how stories bend and dissolve. The brain is not malfunctioning. It is experimenting, testing emotional pathways, reheating old memories, and forming unexpected associations that can spark creativity and insight in your waking life. Deep within this dream-driven circuitry, something else extraordinary happens. Your brain begins to integrate emotional experiences accumulated throughout the day. Unfinished thoughts, subtle anxieties, unspoken feelings. REM sleep takes these fragments and weaves them into narrative form. These stories may seem bizarre, yet they play a crucial role in emotional regulation. Night after night, the dreaming brain softens the edges of hardship, reorganizes unresolved tension, and helps you wake with a clearer, lighter mind. This is why dreams feel both intimate and distant, meaningful yet fluid, because they are crafted from the emotional threads of your inner world. Meanwhile, the rest of the body remains deeply still. A state known as REM atonia ensures that your muscles remain motionless, preventing the physical acting out of dreams. It is a delicate neurological lock, precisely timed, gracefully coordinated, allowing the mind to roam freely while the body rests safely. Heart rate increases slightly, breathing becomes more irregular, and the brain's metabolism rises as if preparing for a private internal theater. The entire system engages in a dance that is both ancient and exquisitely complex. And as you drift through this shifting dreamscape where memories glow softly, where emotions reshape themselves, where imagination becomes the architect of entire worlds, a subtle change begins to occur once again. The rhythms slow, the light dims, the vividness retreats. The brain prepares to cycle back into deeper calm, beginning the next rotation of the night's intricate biological choreography. As the vivid glow of dreaming begins to fade, the brain enters a gentle descent once more, returning to the quieter depths of non-REM sleep. This cycling, moving from light sleep to deep sleep, into dreams and back again, is not random. It is a precise biological rhythm, repeating every 90 minutes like a silent internal tide. Each cycle shapes the architecture of your night, guiding the brain and body through alternating phases of restoration, emotional processing, and cognitive renewal. Across millions of years of evolution, this sequence has become one of the most stable patterns in human biology, essential for survival, health, and mental clarity. In these returning waves of lighter sleep, the autonomic nervous system steadies itself. Breathing grows more even, the heart settles into a calm, rhythmic pace, and the body continues its silent work of cellular repair. The immune system uses this time to strengthen its defenses, identifying and eliminating lingering threats within the bloodstream. Tiny microglial cells in the brain sweep through neural networks, clearing inflammation and protecting neurons from long-term damage. To the outside observer, you appear motionless, but inside, you are undergoing one of the most profound restorative processes the body can perform. Meanwhile, the brain begins to evaluate the new memories formed throughout the day. Those deemed insignificant begin to fade. Those of emotional or personal value are reinforced. This selective strengthening is critical. Without the filtering power of sleep, the mind would drown in unprocessed experience. But during these cycles, neural pathways are sculpted with extraordinary precision. Synapses weaken or strengthen based on your experiences, shaping your ability to think, learn, and recall. In these moments, the brain refines itself quietly, optimizing its architecture while consciousness rests. As the cycle nears its end, another shift begins. The brain's electrical patterns start to rise again, preparing you for another return to REM sleep. These transitions are smooth and subtle, a drifting from one reality to another. This is why a single night of sleep can feel like a journey, descending into deep stillness, rising into luminous dream states, floating between worlds that are part memory, part imagination. Each cycle carries you closer to morning, weaving together layers of restoration that your waking mind will never fully witness, but will depend on completely. And as the night progresses, these cycles gradually change. Deep sleep becomes lighter, dreams become longer, and consciousness drifts closer to the surface. Each rotation is a step toward waking, yet every cycle is essential, forming a chain of biological rhythms that protect your body, sharpen your mind, and soothe your emotions. Soon, another dream will rise. Another tide of slow waves will return. The night continues its quiet choreography, guiding you through its ancient, restorative dance. As the night unfolds, your body descends into its most intricate and essential work, silent processes that maintain life, strengthen resilience, and repair the microscopic wear accumulated through every hour of wakefulness. During these deeper stages of sleep, the endocrine system becomes an unseen conductor, releasing carefully timed waves of hormones that reshape the body from within. Growth hormone peaks, repairing muscles, regenerating tissues, and supporting the complex metabolism of every organ. Cortisol, the stress hormone, falls to its lowest levels of the day, allowing the nervous system to unwind and recover. This hormonal choreography is not random. It is an orchestration refined by evolution to keep the human body balanced, strong, and adaptable. Meanwhile, the cardiovascular system enters a state of profound tranquility. Blood pressure drops, heart rate steadies, and the vessels relax, giving the circulatory system time to restore itself. This nightly reduction in strain is vital. It protects the heart, reduces inflammation, and supports long-term cardiovascular health. Without these hours of lowered pressure, the heart would work endlessly, without pause, carrying the weight of each day's demands. Sleep becomes the only moment when the heart, tirelessly beating billions of times across a lifetime, is offered a chance to rest. In the deeper layers of your physiology, the immune system awakens in full force. Specialized cells scan tissues for signs of infection, repair microscopic damage, and coordinate immune memory, teaching your body how to recognize and respond to future threats. Cytokines, the chemical messengers of immunity, rise during sleep, enhancing the body's ability to heal. This is why, when you fall ill, your body urges you to sleep more. It knows that the immune system's greatest power is unleashed in darkness, not daylight. Even your metabolism is recalibrated during these silent hours. The brain, having reduced its energy consumption in deep sleep, allows glucose regulation and insulin sensitivity to normalize. This nightly reset influences weight balance, appetite, and hormonal stability. Without sufficient sleep, the chemical signals that control hunger and fullness become distorted, creating cravings and metabolic imbalances. With sleep, these signals fall back into harmony, supporting the body's natural equilibrium. And through all of this, your muscles lie in deep stillness. Motor neurons are quiet, tension dissolves, and the body becomes weightless under the blanket of night. This muscular stillness is not idleness, it is recovery. Fibers that strain during the day knit themselves back together, micro-tears heal, flexibility and strength are restored. Every morning, when you rise feeling lighter, calmer, more aligned, it is because your body has spent the night repairing itself with extraordinary precision. As these processes unfold, the mind remains sheltered in its quiet internal world, unaware of the profound work being done beneath consciousness. The body restores, the systems recalibrate, and the cycles of sleep continue, each one carrying you deeper into the night's quiet renewal. As the night deepens, another subtle but essential transformation begins within the brain, a process that safeguards your emotional life. During sleep, especially in the transitions between deeper, non-REM phases and the dream-rich territory of REM, the limbic system engages in delicate recalibration. This network, responsible for emotion, memory, and instinct, undergoes a kind of nightly cleansing. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm, quiets, allowing intense feelings accumulated during the day to soften. Stress signals diminish, and emotional circuits regain balance. It is here, in these quiet rotations of the night, that the storms of wakeful experience lose their sharp edges. Within this emotional landscape, memories of the day are not only stored, they are reshaped. The brain revisits moments charged with feeling, decoupling emotion from memory in a way that protects psychological well-being. Anxieties are softened, fears are recalibrated, and unresolved tension fades into manageable form. This is why a night of deep sleep can make problems feel lighter, conversations feel clearer, and the world seem more bearable. Sleep is not an escape from reality, it is preparation for it. A nightly therapy session performed without a therapist, guided only by the slow, rhythmic language of neural networks. Meanwhile, the default mode network, one of the brain's most introspective systems, becomes more active. This internal network weaves together fragments of identity, past experiences, and ongoing emotional narratives. During the day, it sits beneath conscious thought, overshadowed by responsibilities and external noise. But at night, when the world dims and the senses retreat, this network awakens to reorganize the inner map of your life. It strengthens your sense of self, processes contradictions, and integrates new insights into your existing worldview. Without sleep, this deep integration becomes fractured, leading to emotional instability and cognitive fog. As emotional circuits recalibrate, the brain also reduces the production of norepinephrine, the chemical associated with stress and alertness. This drop creates a rare neurological environment, a state where the mind can revisit emotional memories without triggering the full physiological stress response. It is a kind of biological kindness, allowing the mind to heal without reopening old wounds. Here, the subconscious is free to process, refine, and release emotional tension in ways waking thought cannot access. And while all this unfolds, consciousness remains sheltered within the soft haze of sleep, unaware of the extraordinary healing taking place below the surface. Each cycle brings greater clarity. Each dream, each slow wave, each silent recalibration gently aligns the emotional world you will greet in the morning. Soon, the night will guide you into another rotation, another descent into deeper calm, another rise toward the luminous frontier of dreaming. The mind prepares, the rhythms shift, and sleep continues its ancient work of restoring who you are beneath your waking thoughts. As the night continues its silent rotation, the brain begins to reveal one of its most intricate and mysterious patterns, the delicate dialogue between its waking architecture and its sleeping form. During the day, neural networks behave like bustling cities, information rushing through pathways, decisions forming, senses interpreting the world with rapid precision. But in sleep, these same networks shift into an entirely different mode, one that is quieter, more reflective, and extraordinarily efficient. Circuits that were once overwhelmed by sensory input are now free to reorganize, strengthen, or dissolve connections based on what the mind truly needs. Deep within the cortex, synaptic pruning begins a process where unnecessary or weakened connections are gently pared away, making room for stronger, more meaningful pathways. This nightly refinement preserves mental clarity, supports learning, and keeps the brain from becoming cluttered with the noise of irrelevant experiences. Without this pruning, the mind would accumulate too much detail, too much confusion, too many unfiltered impressions. Sleep allows the brain to sculpt itself, removing what no longer serves and reinforcing what does. At the same time, the brain's glymphatic system, the hidden cleansing mechanism discovered only in the last decade, activates with remarkable intensity. Cerebrospinal fluid begins to flow more freely, washing through neural tissue and clearing away metabolic byproducts that build up during wakefulness. Among these is beta amyloid, the protein associated with cognitive decline when left unchecked. During deep sleep, this waste is swept from the brain with a precision and efficiency unmatched during the day. In this quiet darkness, your brain is not simply resting, it is preserving its long-term health. Elsewhere, the networks responsible for attention, problem-solving, and creativity enter a unique state of interplay. Freed from the practical constraints of reality, they begin to communicate in unusual combinations, making associations that would not emerge in waking thought. This is why insights often arrive after sleep, why creativity sharpens after rest, why complex problems sometimes feel simpler in the morning. Sleep temporarily loosens the rigid boundaries of cognition, allowing ideas to recombine in ways that are both novel and deeply intuitive. Meanwhile, the sensory regions of the brain retreat into silence, Visual centers dim, auditory pathways soften, and tactile processing falls away almost entirely. Yet within this sensory quiet, the internal landscape becomes more vivid. The brain turns inward, exploring memory, emotion, and imagination with a clarity that does not depend on the outside world. In this introspective state, the mind becomes both the observer and the creator, quietly stitching together the threads of your inner life. And as all of this unfolds, the boundary between consciousness and subconsciousness grows thinner, more fluid. The mind drifts through layers of awareness, each one offering a different form of restoration, insight, or emotional release. You sink deeper into the quiet architecture of night, held in a state where every system, mental, emotional, physical, comes into delicate alignment. Soon another cycle will rise, another wave of dreams, another descent into deep restoration. The night continues its ancient work, guiding you gently through the hidden layers of the self. As the night drifts forward, your brain becomes a landscape of shifting rhythms, waves rising and falling in perfect biological harmony. These electrical patterns, invisible yet profoundly influential, guide every moment of your sleep. They are not random pulses of activity. They are orchestrated signals, each with its own purpose, traveling through your brain like gentle tides, shaping the shores of consciousness. Together, they create a symphony of oscillations that restore, regulate, and refine the mind in ways no waking process could replicate. The first of these rhythms, the delta waves, dominate the deeper stages of non-REM sleep. Slow, powerful, and synchronized, they move across the cortex as unified pulses of electrical calm. Under their influence, the brain reaches its most restorative state. Neurons fire at their slowest pace, conserving energy while supporting memory consolidation and physical healing. These slow oscillations act as anchors, grounding the night's regenerative processes and preparing the mind for the cycles to come. Interwoven with these slow waves are sleep spindles, brief bursts of rapid activity originating in the thalamus. They appear like flashes of light across the sleeping brain, lasting only a second but carrying extraordinary importance. Sleep spindles help protect the brain from external disturbances, shielding your inner world from noise and interruption. They also support learning by stabilizing new neural connections formed during the day. With each spindle, the brain reinforces knowledge, seals memories, and strengthens cognitive pathways, ensuring that your waking mind is sharper and more resilient. Among these rhythms, another pattern emerges. K-complexes, large singular waves that rise suddenly and fade just as quickly. These unique bursts act like sentinels, monitoring the environment for danger while keeping the sleeper immersed in restorative rest. If a sound or movement occurs nearby, the K-complex briefly awakens the brain just enough to assess safety, then gently returns it to sleep. Evolution has shaped these waves as guardians of the night, allowing humans to sleep deeply while remaining attuned to the possibility of threat. Together, these oscillations form a dynamic interplay, slow waves guiding the deeper restoration, spindles weaving memory, K-complexes guarding the boundary between sleep and wakefulness. Each rhythm supports the others, creating a layered structure of protection, healing, and transformation. Your brain, though resting, is performing a choreography of unimaginable precision, adjusting itself with each passing minute. And through all of this, your awareness floats quietly in the background, distant, softened, weightless. You do not feel the waves, you do not sense the spindles, you do not hear the silent pulses of neural energy moving through your cortex. Yet they guide you, protect you, and carry you deeper into the night's quiet intelligence. Soon, these rhythms will shift again as the brain prepares to cross back into the bright landscape of REM, another world of imagery, memory, and inner motion waiting beneath the surface of sleep. As the brain's slow waves begin to soften, a subtle rise of internal activity begins to bloom beneath the surface. It is gentle at first, tiny sparks of neural excitement flickering across the cortex. Yet these sparks signal the return of one of the most mysterious states the human mind can enter: REM sleep, dreaming. The brain prepares not just to restore, but to imagine, to reshape, to wander through the quiet corridors of its own inner world. As this transition unfolds, the thalamus begins to open once more, not to the outside world, but to a reality generated entirely within. Sensory pathways light up without receiving any real input. The visual cortex glows with activity as if seeing vivid landscapes. The auditory regions hum as if hearing voices or distant echoes. Even the motor cortex becomes intensely active, yet your body remains perfectly still, held in the protective embrace of REM atonia. The brain is rehearsing actions, movements, emotions, without letting the physical world interfere. Inside this rising activity, the hippocampus and amygdala communicate in a rare, unfiltered way. Memories drift upward, sometimes in fragments, sometimes woven into impossible stories. Old emotions surface, not to overwhelm, but to transform. It is here that the raw material of your life, your fears, your hopes, your unresolved conflicts, meets your imagination. In this dream-forged environment, the subconscious is free to experiment, to combine meaning with memory, to soften the sharp edges of emotion. What emerges is not randomness, but a deeply personal narrative shaped by the emotional fingerprints of your day. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the rational overseer of waking thought, remains quiet. Without its strict boundaries, dreams flow in ways waking logic could never permit. Identity becomes fluid. Places shimmer and transform. Time bends and folds. These distortions are not flaws, they are freedoms. Freedoms that allow your mind to explore without constraint, to solve problems creatively, to rehearse future challenges, or to release emotional tension that cannot be resolved while awake. At the same time, the brain's metabolic activity approaches levels seen during full consciousness. Blood flow increases, neural circuits fire rapidly, neurotransmitters shift in delicate balance, acetylcholine rising, norepinephrine falling, creating the perfect chemical environment for imagination to flourish. You are, in these moments, both deeply asleep and astonishingly awake in a world entirely of your own making. And through this luminous landscape of dreams, your sense of self becomes lighter, more diffuse. You drift between roles, between memories, between possibilities. You explore the hidden architecture of your inner life, guided by rhythms older than language, older than human thought itself. Soon, this vivid world will dim, the lights of REM will soften, the slow waves will return, and you will descend once more into the deep, quiet waters of restoration. As the dream state gradually softens, the brain begins shifting once more into a quieter, more grounded rhythm. This transition is delicate, almost imperceptible, yet it marks one of the most essential recalibrations of the night. Neural activity slowly descends from the vivid brightness of REM, settling back into the smoother, steadier patterns of non-REM sleep. It is in these gentle transitions that your brain performs the subtle fine-tuning that shapes your emotional stability, cognitive clarity, and overall mental resilience. Deep within the frontal lobes, the networks responsible for decision-making and self-control begin to reconnect. Throughout dreaming, these regions rested, allowing emotional circuits to process freely. But now, they reawaken with a renewed sense of balance. The executive functions recalibrate, preparing the mind for the demands of the waking world. This nightly reset helps regulate impulsivity, strengthen attention, and refine your ability to respond with clarity rather than reactivity. Without this recalibration, the mind would wake tangled in emotional residue and cognitive noise. In the limbic system, emotional circuits continue their quiet work. The amygdala, having released much of the day's accumulated tension during REM, now settles into a calmer baseline. Stress responses diminish further. Emotional memories lose their urgency. This gentle stabilizing effect is one of sleep's most profound contributions to mental health. It creates a neurological environment where the emotional storms of the day dissolve into manageable currents. By morning, the internal world feels smoother, safer, more coherent. Simultaneously, the brainstem regulates the transitions between sleep stages with remarkable precision. Levels of serotonin, dopamine, and acetylcholine shift in careful patterns, guiding the brain through cycles of depth and lightness. These neurotransmitters act like internal timekeepers, ensuring that each stage of sleep receives the attention it requires: deep restoration, emotional processing, memory consolidation, and cognitive integration. Their rhythm is so consistent that, night after night, your sleep becomes an intricate dance of chemistry and electricity. As this recalibration continues, the autonomic nervous system settles into one of its deepest parasympathetic states. Heart rate slows again after the rapidity of REM. Breathing becomes smoother, more controlled. Blood vessels relax. This shift strengthens resilience, not only for the mind, but for the entire body. It reduces inflammation, supports digestion, and reinforces the heart's ability to recover from each day's demands. It is in these quiet phases that your body rebuilds its capacity for calm. And while all of this unfolds beneath the surface, your awareness drifts like a soft ember suspended in darkness, quiet, distant, untouched. You are carried gently through this internal recalibration without needing to participate, without needing to understand. It simply happens, night after night, guided by biological intelligence shaped across millions of years. Soon, the cycles will continue their rotation. Another descent, another rise. The night is not finished with its work. It is only guiding you deeper toward the morning's renewal. As you move deeper through the architecture of the night, another realm of the mind begins its silent, hidden work, the vast and often misunderstood territory of the subconscious. During the day, this part of your mind remains beneath the surface, overshadowed by tasks, obligations, conversations, and the continuous demands of waking awareness. But in sleep, When consciousness loosens and external noise fades, the subconscious rises gently, like a luminous structure emerging from beneath dark water. Here, patterns of thought become fluid. Ideas drift without the constraints of logic. The subconscious revisits uncompleted emotional loops, unresolved questions, muted intentions, quietly rearranging them into forms the waking mind can understand. It is a place where unspoken truths reorganize themselves, where forgotten insights drift upward, and where clarity begins to take shape in ways too subtle to notice until morning. These processes are not loud or dramatic. They unfold in whispers, in delicate neural shifts, in silent rewiring that gently aligns your inner world. Within this hidden domain, the basal ganglia play a remarkable role, rehearsing motor patterns, habits, and learned skills. Actions you practice during the day, whether speaking, moving, learning, or creating, are replayed in miniature, reinforced, and refined. This is why certain tasks feel easier in the morning, why behaviors become more fluid after a night of sleep, why the brain seems to solve physical patterns without your conscious effort. The subconscious is training you, preparing you, strengthening your internal choreography. At the same time, the anterior cingulate cortex, the region associated with emotional insight and self-awareness, enters a state of reflective calm. It observes without judgment, processes without pressure, and helps integrate the emotional meaning of your experiences. This is the soft inner work that allows you to wake feeling more grounded, more centered, more capable of facing the complexity of life. Without this nightly integration, the emotional and cognitive layers of the mind would remain fragmented, unaligned. Meanwhile, deep memory structures such as the hippocampus and neocortex continue their nocturnal dialogue. Memories are not just stored, they are reshaped, blended, categorized, and evaluated. The subconscious negotiates which experiences become part of your long-term narrative and which fade into the background. This continuous sorting process helps you make sense of yourself, weaving your daily life into the larger fabric of who you are becoming. And through all of this, your awareness floats in a soft, distant haze. You are not present as an observer, only as a participant carried by gentle currents of neural intelligence. You drift through these internal landscapes without effort, without direction, guided by patterns older than your conscious mind, older than human thought itself. Soon, the rhythms of sleep will shift again. Another cycle will rise, another descent into dreaming, another return to stillness. The subconscious continues its quiet work, shaping you in ways you will only recognize when morning light finds you. As the night stretches onward, the mind enters one of its most delicate phases, an internal restoration of the senses that shape your waking perception. During the day, your brain is continuously overwhelmed by stimuli, bright lights, sudden sounds, shifting environments, emotional signals, constant motion. These sensory pathways work tirelessly, decoding the world with astonishing speed. But in sleep, especially in the deeper rhythms of non-REM, these pathways retreat into silence, allowing them to repair, recalibrate, and return to their natural equilibrium. In the visual cortex, activity falls to its lowest levels. The constant bombardment of images, faces, screens, lights, movement finally ceases. Neurons that spent the day processing color, shape, and motion now rest, restoring their sensitivity. This nightly pause sharpens visual perception for the next day, helping you see more clearly, focus more easily, and interpret subtle details with greater accuracy. Without sleep, these neurons grow fatigued, leading to blurred perception, difficulty focusing, and a feeling of sensory overload. In the auditory system, the shift is just as remarkable. The inner ears never fully stop receiving sound, but the brain gradually stops interpreting it. Auditory pathways become less reactive, less vigilant, allowing their delicate structures to reset. This nightly down-regulation protects the auditory system from overstimulation and helps refine the brain's ability to filter meaningful sounds from background noise. This is why the world feels sharper, quieter, and easier to navigate after a deep night of rest. Even the sense of touch, so fundamental, so constant, is given space to recover. Throughout the day, tactile receptors respond to every movement, every texture, every shift in temperature. But in the stillness of sleep, the somatosensory cortex releases much of this sensory load. Neural circuits that decode pressure, temperature, and pain drift into a quiet neutrality. This reset helps regulate pain perception, reduce muscle tension, and restore the brain's ability to interpret bodily signals with clarity. At the center of this sensory renovation lies the thalamus, the grand gateway that determines which signals reach consciousness. During sleep, it becomes a guardian of silence, filtering out unnecessary stimuli and protecting the brain from interruption. This thalamic gating is essential. Without it, consciousness would fracture under constant sensory intrusion. Sleep gives the senses a sanctuary, a protected space where they can heal without the demands of the outside world. These restorations may be silent, but their effects shape the entire fabric of waking life. Clarity of vision, sharpness of hearing, sensitivity to touch, balance, coordination, emotional interpretation of sensory input. All of these depend on the nightly resetting of the senses. And as these quiet repairs unfold beneath the surface, your awareness floats gently, weightlessly, drifting deeper into the night's protective cocoon. The senses sleep, the body sleeps, the mind sleeps, yet something deeper remains awake, guiding every moment with ancient precision. Soon, the brain will shift once more into the dream-lit world of REM, where imagination rises again and the subconscious speaks in symbols. The night continues, unfolding its quiet intelligence in cycles of unending restoration. As the deeper currents of sleep continue to flow through you, another system, quiet, vigilant, and essential, awakens within the body, the immune network. During wakefulness, immune cells continuously scan your tissues, but they must compete with movement, digestion, stress, and constant neural activity. Only in sleep, when the external world fades and the body's systems become still, can immunity rise into its most powerful form. In these hours of darkness, the release of cytokines increases significantly. These chemical messengers coordinate the repair of tissues, attack invading pathogens, and strengthen the body's long-term defenses. Their activity is so profound that even a single night of sleep deprivation weakens immunity, leaving the body more vulnerable to infection. But in deep, sustained sleep, particularly during slow-wave phases, the immune system expands its reach, clearing inflammation and fortifying the body with meticulous precision. Within this same restorative space, the lymphatic system works in harmony with the glymphatic pathways of the brain. While the glymphatic system flushes waste from neural tissue, the lymphatic vessels clear metabolic debris from the rest of the body, toxins are filtered, damaged cells are removed, and inflammation is reduced. This synchronized cleansing helps maintain metabolic balance and protects the body from long-term strain. It is a silent detoxification, effortless, rhythmic, ongoing. Even the microbiome, the vast network of microorganisms within your gut, benefits from the nightly rhythms of sleep. During rest, the digestive system slows, giving microbial populations time to rebalance and restore the delicate ecosystem that supports immunity, mood regulation, and metabolic health. A stable microbiome enhances emotional resilience, cognitive clarity, and even the ability to manage stress, all of which are strengthened by consistent, high-quality sleep. Meanwhile, the body's cells engage in one of their most fundamental tasks, DNA repair. Throughout the day, cells accumulate damage from stress, radiation, metabolic processes, and countless microscopic events. But in sleep, particularly in the deepest cycles, repair enzymes become more active. They scan and mend strands of genetic material, preserving the stability of the body's cellular blueprint. Without these quiet hours of repair, the burden of damage would accumulate, accelerating aging and undermining long-term health. At the same time, mitochondria, the energy powerhouses within your cells, reset their metabolic rhythms. They shift from high energy output to restoration mode, clearing oxidative stress and preparing for another day of sustained activity. This nightly renewal strengthens physical endurance, elevates morning energy, and stabilizes the body's natural rhythms. All of these processes unfold without your awareness. You are not conscious of the immune cells moving through your bloodstream, the DNA strands being repaired, the microbiome recalibrating, or the mitochondria renewing their energy reserves. Yet each moment contributes to your vitality, resilience, and well-being. You drift, suspended in darkness, and the night continues its work protecting, repairing, fortifying, while your mind sinks deeper into its quiet sanctuary. Soon the cycles will turn again. Dreams will rise. Neural rhythms will shift. The architecture of sleep continues, carrying you gently through its ancient rituals. As the quiet work of the night continues, the autonomic nervous system, your body's unseen regulator, begins to shift into one of its most restorative patterns. During wakefulness, you move through a world filled with stimulus and demand. Every sound, every decision, every moment of tension subtly activates your sympathetic system, the network that prepares you to react, to act, to endure. But in sleep, especially in the deeper cycles of non-REM, this system loosens its grip. Its signals fade, its urgency dissolves, and the body transitions fully into the parasympathetic state, the branch of the nervous system dedicated to healing, digestion, repair, and renewal. In this parasympathetic dominance, your heart finally rests. Heart rate slows to some of its lowest natural levels. Blood vessels relax. Vagal tone increases, allowing the vagus nerve to perform its essential work of calming the body and regulating internal balance. This shift enhances emotional resilience, stabilizes mood, and supports cardiovascular health. Each night spent in this calm state strengthens the body's capacity to face stress the next day with greater clarity and steadiness. Meanwhile, the digestive system, which works tirelessly throughout the day, enters a phase of gentle recalibration. Enzymes quiet, muscles relax, Nutrient absorption continues, but at a slower, more deliberate rhythm. This nightly pause allows the gut and the nervous system woven through it to restore harmony. It also strengthens the connection between the gut and the brain, a communication pathway that profoundly influences mood, cognition, and emotional stability. With each cycle of sleep, the gut-brain axis becomes more balanced, more synchronized. Within the spinal cord and peripheral nerves, electrical noise decreases dramatically. The constant stream of sensory input that floods your nervous system while awake finally settles. Receptors reset their sensitivity. Neural pathways reduce their excitability. This quieting process is essential for preventing overstimulation and restoring the nervous system's capacity to respond appropriately during the day. Without this nightly rebalancing, the nervous system becomes saturated, leading to irritability, sensory overwhelm, and diminished focus. At the same time, the brainstem manages the intricate balance of breath. In the stillness of sleep, breathing becomes slower, deeper, more rhythmic. Each inhalation enriches the bloodstream with oxygen. Each exhalation releases the subtle weight of carbon dioxide. This delicate dance supports pH balance, calms neural circuits, and deepens the parasympathetic state even further. The body breathes not for action, but for restoration. Through all these shifts, a gentle internal harmony emerges, a balance the waking mind rarely experiences. The nervous system recalibrates, the heartbeat softens, the breath deepens, and the body drifts deeper into tranquility. And while consciousness remains unaware of these profound internal shifts, they shape the tone of the day to come. Clarity, calmness, emotional steadiness, renewed energy. You drift within this biological peace, surrounded by stillness, carried by processes older than human language, older than the concept of time itself. And soon, the rhythms will rise again. Another dreaming cycle, another descent into slow waves. The night continues, guiding you through its quiet restoration. As the night cycles deepen, the body enters one of its most delicate and essential layers of restoration, the orchestration of hormones. These chemical messengers, small, unseen, yet unimaginably powerful, govern nearly every aspect of your physiology. And while the day demands constant adjustment and rapid response, the night allows these systems to recalibrate with calm precision. One of the first changes emerges in the circadian rhythm of cortisol. During waking hours, cortisol rises and falls to power alertness, decision-making, focus, and the ability to navigate stress. But at night, its levels reach their lowest point, creating a biological silence that allows emotional and physiological repair. This nightly drop resets the stress system, preventing the buildup of tension, irritability, and emotional fatigue. By morning, cortisol rises gently again, not as a shock, but as a slow, natural awakening. At the same time, melatonin continues to guide the body deeper into darkness. Although most of its release occurs earlier in the night, it continues to influence your internal clock, synchronizing every organ with the rhythm of sleep. Cells throughout the body become more responsive to repair signals, metabolism slows, and the body remains in a steady state of nocturnal alignment. Melatonin is more than a sleep hormone, it is a conductor of internal harmony. Throughout the night, insulin sensitivity also shifts. While the waking body must process nutrients quickly and efficiently, the sleeping body focuses on restoring its metabolic balance. Hormonal signals involved in appetite, ghrelin and leptin reset, normalizing hunger cues for the next day. This recalibration is why good sleep stabilizes appetite and prevents the cravings that appear when the body is deprived of rest. Sleep steadies the metabolism, granting clarity and balance to systems that can easily fall into disorder. Deep within the bloodstream, growth hormone reaches its peak. Released in pulses during slow-wave sleep, it performs remarkable tasks, repairing tissues, supporting muscle growth, preserving bone density, and aiding cellular regeneration. This nightly restoration influences how you heal, how you age, and how your body withstands the stresses of life. Much of the body's long-term resilience depends on these quiet hormonal surges. Even the thyroid system, responsible for regulating energy levels and metabolic rate, undergoes subtle adjustments during the night. It slows gently, conserving energy, then prepares to rise again with the dawn. This rhythmic modulation supports mood stability, physical vitality, and the body's internal timing. All of these hormonal shifts are not isolated, they are synchronized. They form a delicate, rhythmic interplay that only occurs during deep, sustained sleep. Without this nightly balancing act, the body drifts into dysregulation. Hunger increases, stress amplifies, metabolism falters, and emotional steadiness weakens. But here, in the dark quiet of the night, everything moves in harmony. Stress eases, hunger signals reset, healing deepens, energy systems smooth into balance, and you drift through these changes effortlessly, unaware yet deeply transformed, carried by the body's ancient intelligence. Soon, the cycles of sleep will draw you again toward the bright horizon of dreaming. The night continues, shaping you from within softly, silently, completely. As the night progresses, the brain enters one of its most intricate and defining processes, the refinement of memory. Sleep is not simply a pause from experience. It's the stage on which your mind decides what to remember, what to forget, and how to integrate the fragments of your day into the vast architecture of your identity. Within the hippocampus, memories formed during wakefulness begin to unfold like soft echoes. They appear not as perfect recordings, but as flickers, moments, impressions, emotions. These fragments activate in short, rhythmic bursts, replaying themselves in patterns that travel outward into the neocortex. This is the quiet dialogue of memory consolidation, where temporary memories find their permanent home. Without this nightly migration, new knowledge remains fragile, unable to anchor itself fully in the deeper layers of your brain. As these memories travel, the neocortex begins to weave them into existing networks. Connections strengthen, paths reorganize, and certain pieces of information, those repeated, emotional, or deeply meaningful, become more deeply embedded. This process creates the subtle sense of continuity you feel in life, the impression that today is connected to yesterday, that learning accumulates, that your understanding of the world grows more coherent with time. You are, quite literally, becoming yourself through the architecture of sleep. But just as important as what is stored is what is released. During sleep, especially in the deeper oscillations of slow-wave cycles, the brain identifies memories that serve no purpose, sensory noise, emotional clutter, irrelevant details. These are gently weakened, pruned away, or integrated in diluted form. This selective forgetting is not a loss, it is a purification. It frees the mind from overwhelm, preventing it from drowning in excessive detail. It allows clarity, focus, and mental spaciousness to emerge with each new day. Meanwhile, the interaction between sleep spindles and slow waves plays a critical role. Spindles stabilize new synaptic connections, while slow waves open windows of communication between brain regions that rarely synchronize during wakefulness. This rare collaboration allows the brain to integrate complex patterns, skills, languages, motor habits, emotional insights. Creativity thrives in this state because the brain is free to combine ideas that would never intersect during conscious thought. Even the emotional tone of memories is adjusted during sleep. The amygdala softens the emotional charge, allowing painful or stressful experiences to be remembered without carrying the same weight. This process protects mental health, preventing emotional overload and creating a balanced psychological landscape. In many ways, sleep becomes the mind's quiet therapist, reframing, reorganizing, healing. Through all of this, your awareness remains distant, floating somewhere beyond reach. You do not feel the memories shifting, the connections strengthening, the unnecessary fragments dissolving. Yet this silent machinery shapes every moment of your waking life, how you think, how you learn, how you remember, how you feel. You drift deeper, while the mind rebuilds the structure of who you are. And soon, another cycle will rise, another descent into dreams, another turning of the night's internal wheel. The brain continues its ancient work, quiet, deliberate, transformative. As the cycles of the night continue, the brain turns its attention to something far more subtle than memory, far more delicate than physical healing, the ongoing formation of your identity. Sleep is not only a process of restoration, it is the silent workshop in which the self is continuously shaped, adjusted, and refined. Beneath the surface of consciousness, the mind reviews the day's events, compares them with past experiences, and makes quiet decisions about who you are becoming. In the deeper networks of the prefrontal cortex, patterns of thought and belief are gently updated. The mind revisits moments where you succeeded, moments where you struggled, moments where you felt uncertain, hopeful, overwhelmed, or inspired. These experiences begin to reorganize, not chaotically, but with a soft, almost intuitive logic. Sleep allows you to integrate new emotions without losing old wisdom, to absorb new lessons without fracturing your sense of self. It creates a continuity that waking life alone cannot maintain. At the same time, the default mode network, the introspective engine of the brain, enters a prolonged, rhythmic activation. This internal network is responsible for constructing your sense of I, your values, your memories, your perspectives, your emotional patterns. During sleep, when external stimuli fade completely, the default mode network becomes free to refine its structure. It smooths out contradictions, aligns emotional experiences with long-term goals, and recenters your inner narrative. It is a nightly recalibration of identity. Meanwhile, the brain's deeper emotional centers work to stabilize your internal world. The anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for emotional insight and self-evaluation, becomes especially active. It helps you reinterpret difficult experiences, reframing them in gentler, more digestible forms. This process contributes to emotional resilience, why a problem that felt overwhelming yesterday seems more manageable after a night of sleep. The brain gives you perspective not by erasing difficulty, but by integrating it into a wider, calmer context. Elsewhere, the networks responsible for empathy and social understanding also undergo subtle adjustments. Facial expressions, tones of voice, gestures, and conversations from the day are reprocessed through emotional memory circuits. The mind examines what felt meaningful, what felt uncertain, what felt unresolved. Through this nightly sorting, your ability to understand others and to understand yourself deepens. Sleep becomes a bridge between your internal world and the world around you. Even your motivational systems shift and recalibrate. Dopamine pathways that drive curiosity, ambition, and reward-seeking adjust their sensitivity, preparing you for the challenges of the next day. This tuning of motivation influences how you wake, whether with a sense of clarity and purpose or with heaviness and mental fatigue. Sleep strengthens your capacity to face the world with steadiness rather than weariness. All of this unfolds without your awareness. You drift through the night, suspended in softness, while the brain quietly rebuilds the framework of your inner life. You wake not as the same person who fell asleep, but as a subtly updated version of yourself, more integrated, more coherent, more aligned. Soon, the cycles will carry you again into the vivid brightness of dreaming, where imagination will rise and reshape the contours of your inner world once more. The night continues its ancient rhythm, sculpting the mind with every passing hour. As the night carries you through its next rotation, the mind enters another layer of delicate recalibration, one focused entirely on restoring emotional equilibrium. Throughout the day, your brain absorbs subtle emotional imprints, brief moments of tension, quiet disappointments, unexpected joys, hidden anxieties, small victories. Even the emotions you never fully acknowledge collect beneath the surface, forming quiet tides within the nervous system. Sleep becomes the sanctuary where these tides are balanced. Within the amygdala, the intensity of emotional memories is softened. This small almond-shaped structure holds the echoes of fear, stress, and alertness. During deep non-REM sleep, its heightened sensitivity begins to fade. Neural activity becomes more orderly, less reactive. The emotional charge attached to memories is gently reduced, allowing you to remember without reliving. This process is one of the great gifts of sleep. It transforms emotional wounds into manageable memories, preventing the mind from carrying the full weight of yesterday's tension into tomorrow. Simultaneously, the prefrontal cortex, the center of emotional regulation, strengthens its connections. While the amygdala calms, the prefrontal regions sharpen their stability, rebuilding the circuits that help you think clearly during stressful moments. This renewed balance between emotion and reason is essential. It's the neurological foundation for patience, composure, and clear thinking. A well-slept mind can navigate complexity without collapsing into overwhelm. In the insular cortex, emotional awareness undergoes a subtle recalibration. This region helps you interpret the internal signals of your body: heartbeat, tension, tightness, calm, breath. During sleep, especially deeper cycles, its sensitivity is reset. This is why, after a restful night, your emotional reactions feel steadier, your responses more grounded. The body's signals feel less chaotic and more readable. Even the neurotransmitters that shape emotional tone undergo profound shifts. Levels of serotonin, responsible for mood stability and calm, rise in preparation for morning. Dopamine pathways associated with motivation and reward adjust their sensitivity. Noradrenaline, the chemical of alertness and stress, is kept to some of its lowest levels during REM, allowing dreams to process emotional content without triggering physical stress responses. This creates a unique environment where the mind can explore difficult emotions safely without the body joining the alarm. At the same time, the brain processes social emotions, shame, pride, affection, irritation, empathy with remarkable nuance. Interactions from the day replay in softened form, their emotional textures smoothed and reorganized. This integration helps refine your sense of connection to others, allowing you to wake with clearer boundaries, deeper understanding, and a more balanced sense of belonging. All of this emotional restoration occurs quietly, gently, beneath consciousness. You do not feel the charge leaving memories, the circuits rebalancing, the neurotransmitters shifting. But when you open your eyes in the morning, the effects are unmistakable. Calmness where there was tension, clarity where there was confusion, steadiness where there was emotional noise. The night continues to work, shaping the emotional world you will carry into the light. Soon, another cycle will rise, another drift into dreams, another descent into restorative silence. As the night deepens further, your body enters one of its most subtle yet transformative phases, the full restoration of its energetic systems. Every cell, every organ, every circuit of your physiology relies on energy, and that energy must be replenished, regulated, and redistributed with precision. Sleep is the only moment when this recalibration can occur without interruption. Deep within each cell, the mitochondria, the microscopic engines that power every heartbeat, every thought, every breath, begin their nightly restoration. During the day, they work relentlessly, generating the energy needed for movement, emotion, stress, learning, and survival. But this constant activity creates oxidative stress, leaving behind free radicals that can weaken cellular structures. In sleep, these engines finally shift into repair mode, clearing accumulated stress and restoring their ability to produce energy efficiently. This microscopic renewal is one of the reasons you wake feeling capable, clear, and alive. Meanwhile, the body's glucose regulation undergoes a profound recalibration. Insulin sensitivity resets, stabilizing blood sugar levels for the day ahead. This nightly balancing act protects against emotional volatility, energy crashes, and metabolic imbalance. Without it, mornings would begin with instability, foggy thinking, irritability, hunger spikes, and a sense of underlying exhaustion. Sleep transforms metabolic chaos into harmony. Even the liver, one of the body's most powerful detoxifying organs, increases its activity during the night. Enzymes rise to process hormones, filter byproducts, and support the purification of the bloodstream. This is not the dramatic detox of popular language. It is a quiet, methodical cleansing performed with biological precision. The liver clears what the body no longer needs, preparing your internal systems for the next day of living, feeling, and thinking. At the same time, electrolyte balance is restored throughout the nervous system. Sodium, potassium, and calcium ions, essential for every neural signal, return to their ideal distributions. This recalibration stabilizes the firing of neurons, ensuring that thoughts are clear, muscles respond smoothly, and emotions stay grounded. Without this nightly balancing, the brain becomes overexcitable, leading to irritability, anxiety, and cognitive noise. Hydration rhythms also shift into harmony. Cells absorb the fluid they need, tissues rehydrate, and the brain's own fluid systems replenish the spaces that lost moisture during wakeful metabolism. This subtle replenishment supports elasticity, clarity, and cellular communication. Together, these processes create a profound energetic reset, one that no supplement, no meditation, no waking practice can replicate. Sleep is the architect of vitality, the silent regulator of energy, the unseen guardian of physical balance. And through all of this, you drift, quietly, softly, without effort. Your body restores itself, while your awareness rests in gentle darkness. Soon the cycles will turn again. Another descent into dreams, another slow rise into deep stillness. The night continues its ancient work, rebuilding the foundation of your strength, one silent moment at a time. As the night continues its quiet rotation, one of the most extraordinary processes unfolds beneath consciousness: the alignment of the body's internal clocks. Every organ, every tissue, even individual cells follow their own circadian rhythm, a 24-hour cycle that shapes metabolism, temperature, hormone release, digestion, and cognitive performance. Yet these internal clocks must remain synchronized, or the body drifts into biological dissonance. Sleep becomes the conductor that reunites these rhythms into one harmonious flow. Deep within the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock, monitors the timing of light and darkness. During sleep, it recalibrates its signals, sending subtle pulses through the nervous and endocrine systems. These pulses influence the rhythms of the heart, the timing of digestion, the fluctuations of body temperature, and the pace of metabolic activity. Without this nightly harmonization, the body would wake confused organs out of sync, energy misplaced, mood unbalanced. In the liver, metabolic clocks respond to these signals by adjusting enzyme cycles, resetting the body's readiness to process nutrients. In the muscles, cellular clocks refine energy pathways, preparing tissues for movement and exertion. Even in the immune system, rhythmic genes resynchronize, ensuring that defense responses peak at the most effective times of day. Through this orchestration, sleep restores a deep biological coherence, a sense of internal unity that allows the body to move through the day with stability and ease. You drift, unaware of these intricate recalibrations. Yet the night continues, aligning every part of you into quiet harmony. As the night draws deeper into its quiet middle hours, the mind begins to enter one of the most delicate transitions of sleep, the softening of thought. It is here, in this subtle inward drift, that the architecture of cognition loosens its structure. The sharp edges of waking consciousness fade, and the mind gently detaches from the relentless momentum of the day. Tasks, worries, conversations, expectations, all the mental currents that once pulled at your attention begin to dissolve into the background, as if sinking beneath a still, dark surface. In the frontal cortex, the networks responsible for planning, logic, and decision-making shift into a slower, more rhythmic pattern. These circuits, which burn intensely throughout the day, finally release their constant grip. Their activity becomes smoother, more spacious, allowing mental pressure to fade like a dimming echo. This reduction in cognitive load is not simply a pause. It is a profound recalibration. The mind, freed from the responsibility of control, begins to drift into a state where awareness exists without effort. Elsewhere, in the posterior regions where sensory information is integrated, an equally remarkable transformation begins. The brain no longer interprets the world with precision. Sounds become abstract. Images fade into softness. The strict boundaries between internal and external reality blur. These sensory regions quiet not because the world has disappeared, but because the mind no longer needs to interpret it. This withdrawal from sensory processing is one of sleep's most essential gifts. It frees cognitive space, allowing the deeper layers of the mind to unfold without interruption. As thought softens, the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for introspection, slips into a unique rhythm. While awake, this network often fuels repetitive thinking, rumination, self-evaluation, worry. But in sleep, stripped of emotional urgency and conscious pressure, it becomes calm and fluid. It reviews fragments of experience without judgment, without narrative, without the need for resolution. Thoughts become lighter, more symbolic, drifting through the mind like slow-moving clouds. This gentle, unstructured reflection prevents emotional overload and protects mental stability. In this softened state, time itself becomes distorted. Moments stretch, blend, and dissolve. The linear structure of thought, past, present, future, loosens into a more fluid continuum. You no longer think in sequences, but in impressions. You no longer analyze, you simply drift. This dissolution of temporal structure is essential for the brain's restorative work, giving it freedom to reorganize cognition without the demands of conscious reasoning. Meanwhile, the thalamus, the gateway of sensory input, remains partially closed, ensuring that external stimuli do not intrude on the serenity of this cognitive stillness. The brain is shielded from the world, allowing thought to quiet even further. The circuits responsible for vigilance rest, the systems responsible for attention settle, and the deeper parts of the mind gain space to heal, process, and renew. In this state, thinking becomes something different. Not an active process, but a passive unfolding. Not a rigid structure, but a gentle flow. Not a burden, but a release. This softening is the mind's way of letting go, of easing the tightness of thought, of loosening the grip of worry, of preparing the self for the next cycles of dreaming and deep restoration. You drift through this space effortlessly, supported by a quiet intelligence that asks nothing of you, guiding you deeper into the night's calm. Soon, the rhythms will shift again, and the boundary between thought and dream will dissolve entirely. But for now, you rest in the softest layer of consciousness, a place where the mind releases its weight and becomes light enough to float. As the night approaches its final arc, the architecture of sleep begins to shift in subtle, carefully orchestrated ways. These later cycles carry a unique rhythm, lighter, brighter, more dynamic, like the soft glow that appears just before sunrise. The deepest slow-wave sleep gradually recedes, giving space to longer, more vivid dream phases. This transformation is not random. It is the body's way of preparing both mind and physiology for the gentle return to wakefulness. In these final cycles, the brain's activity becomes more intricate. The balance of neurotransmitters shifts once again, with acetylcholine rising to energize the dreaming mind and norepinephrine remaining low to keep the body still and safe. This chemical landscape creates a rare cognitive environment, one where imagination becomes powerful, emotional content becomes rich, and the subconscious takes its final opportunity of the night to weave meaning into memory. During these late REM phases, the brain begins revisiting experiences that remain partially unresolved. Thoughts that felt incomplete, emotions that lingered without clarity, conversations that echoed faintly throughout the day, all drift into dreams as symbols, images, fragments of story. This is the mind's last attempt to organize emotional weight before morning arrives. It refines, reframes, and integrates what still needs processing. These dreams may feel more vivid, more surreal, or more emotionally intense because they are, in many ways, the final sweep of the subconscious through the inner landscape. Meanwhile, the body also prepares itself for the coming day. Heart rate rises slightly, becoming more responsive. Respiratory patterns grow subtly more active. Body temperature increases after hours of cooling, returning toward the level needed for wakefulness. And yet, these shifts are gentle, smooth transitions designed to protect the mind from abrupt awakening. The body rises slowly from the depths of night, like a tide lifting towards shore. In the endocrine system, cortisol begins its natural ascent, not as the trigger of stress, but as the signal of morning. This gradual rise helps sharpen alertness, stimulate metabolism, and prepare the brain for cognitive activity. When aligned with healthy sleep cycles, this increase is soft, steady, and completely natural. It is the biological whisper that morning is approaching. The brainstem, too, adjusts its rhythms. It prepares the muscles to regain tone, the senses to reopen, the autonomic nervous system to become more active. Yet it does so with precision. The paralysis of REM loosens only slightly, allowing micro-adjustments of the body without breaking the tranquility of sleep. These small movements, an arm shifting, a breath deepening, a finger curling signal the quiet reawakening of the body's control systems. In these late cycles, dreams begin to blend more closely with waking thought. You hover at the edge of consciousness, still drifting, but closer to the surface than before. The boundary between imagination and awareness thins. This is why the last dreams of the night often feel clearer or more memorable. They exist in a space where the mind is almost ready to notice them. And while all of this unfolds, you remain suspended in a soft, luminous state, not fully dreaming, not fully awake, but floating gently between worlds. These final cycles are the night's last offering. One more moment of restoration, one more opportunity for clarity, one more breath of deep, ancient stillness before the return to light. Soon, awareness will rise further. The senses will reopen. The mind will step back into the world, but for now, you drift in the final glow of the night's intelligence, held by rhythms older than time, guided by the quiet wisdom of sleep's last embrace. As the final edge of night unfolds, awareness begins its slow ascent, soft, unhurried, almost imperceptible. It does not arrive as a sudden awakening, but as a quiet expansion, like a dim light gently growing beneath the horizon of consciousness. This rising is one of sleep's most delicate transitions, where the mind stretches outward from its inner landscapes and begins to reconnect with the world it left behind. Deep within the thalamus, the sensory gates start to ease open. Sounds, once distant and abstract, begin to take on shape again, a faint hum, a subtle vibration, the soft rhythm of your own breath. Light behind closed eyelids becomes warmer, more noticeable, forming gradients rather than emptiness. The body itself begins to return. The weight of the limbs, the position of the spine, the softness of the pillow beneath you. And yet, everything remains wrapped in a haze of tranquility, a buffer that protects you from the full weight of consciousness. In the cortex, neural networks responsible for attention and orientation begin to re-establish their connections. These circuits, having rested through the night, awaken with renewed clarity, but they do so gradually, allowing the mind to gather itself without rushing, without strain. It is this gentle rise that prevents confusion, irritation, or disorientation upon waking. The brain rebuilds the scaffolding of awareness piece by piece, sense by sense, thought by thought, until the architecture of consciousness feels stable once more. Meanwhile, the autonomic nervous system begins shifting away from the deep parasympathetic calm of the night. Heart rate increases slightly, becoming more alert. Breathing deepens. Body temperature continues its slow climb toward daytime equilibrium. These changes are subtle but essential. They prime the body to move, think, and respond with clarity. Yet they unfold with such softness that you remain in a suspended state, still held by the night even as you rise toward the day. Within the emotional circuits, the mind performs a final integration. Feelings processed during dreams, softened through slow-wave sleep, and organized throughout the night, now settle into their morning form. The amygdala stabilizes, the prefrontal cortex strengthens its regulation, and emotional clarity begins to emerge. This is why the world feels gentler upon waking from deep, restorative sleep. Your inner landscape has been smoothed, balanced, and aligned. Even your sense of identity returns gradually. Memories drift upward, reconnecting to the present moment. Your internal narrative paused for the night resumes with new structure, shaped by the quiet work of the subconscious. The self reforms gently, without abruptness, like mist slowly condensing into recognizable shape. As all of these systems awaken, you hover in a state between worlds, half inside the softness of sleep, half reaching toward the brightness of wakefulness. It is a rare and fragile moment, one where the mind holds both peace and clarity in perfect balance. You are not yet fully awake, but no longer fully asleep. You float in a warm, luminous boundary, where awareness unfurls like a slow, deep breath. And in this gentle rising, the night leaves its final imprint on you. Stillness in the mind, calm in the body, balance in the heart. Soon, morning will complete its approach, but for now, you drift through the quietest doorway of consciousness, carried by the last whispers of the night. As the final currents of sleep move gently through you, the night completes its long, intricate choreography. It has carried you through cycles of deep restoration, luminous dreaming, emotional renewal, and profound internal quiet. And now, in these last moments before waking, the body and mind approach their natural point of return slowly, softly, without breaking the fragile peace that surrounds you. Deep within the brain, the systems that have worked in perfect harmony throughout the night begin their final transitions. Neural connections stabilized during slow-wave sleep settle into place. Memories integrated in REM find their home in the network of your identity. Emotional circuits, soothed and rebalanced, return to their calm baseline. The brain performs a quiet internal check. Is the mind steady? Are the emotions aligned? Is the body restored? The answer is whispered not in words, but in stability, coherence, clarity. Meanwhile, the endocrine system completes its last adjustments. Cortisol rises delicately to prepare you for the day, never sharply, never with force, but with a slow, natural gradient that supports wakefulness. Growth hormone releases its final pulses. Melatonin withdraws gently into silence, allowing the inner clock to signal that morning is near. Every shift occurs with careful precision, forming a seamless transition between the world of sleep and the world you are about to re-enter. Your body also responds with its own quiet awakening. Muscles regain their tone, joints loosen, cells finalize their repair. Breath deepens, becoming more rhythmic and spacious. Your heartbeat grows slightly stronger, but remains steady, calm, balanced, ready. Even your senses begin to return, one by one. Light behind your eyelids becomes brighter, softer, warmer. The subtle textures of the room air, temperature, stillness, slowly become meaningful again. Sound begins to form shape, rising from the haze into faint recognition. But everything reaches you gently, as if filtered through the last layer of the night's protection. Emotionally, you emerge from darkness with a kind of quiet strength. The tensions of yesterday have softened. Unfinished thoughts have found clarity. Heavy feelings have been reorganized into forms you can carry without strain. Sleep has given you something rare, an internal balance that only the night can create. The subconscious, having spent hours stitching together the deeper layers of your mind, now recedes into stillness. It leaves behind a sense of coherence, as if your inner world has been swept clean, realigned, and given space to breathe. This is why the morning can feel so fresh after a restorative night, because the mind is not simply rested, but renewed. And now, in this delicate threshold between night and day, the final moments of sleep hold you in their softest embrace. Not pulling you back, not pushing you forward, simply allowing you to exist in a quiet space where peace has weight and time has no urgency. You are almost awake, but the night has one last offering for you. A lingering calm that you will carry through the hours ahead, a quiet clarity that will stay with you long after your eyes open. The dreams recede into silence. The rhythms ease into morning. Your consciousness rises like light blooming behind a distant horizon. And as you take your first breath of the waking world, you emerge not as the person who entered the night, but as someone gently rebuilt, rested, reorganized, restored. The night has completed its work. The journey through sleep has come full circle. And now, with softness, with steadiness, with renewed depth, it releases you back into the light.